Okay, so we are going to look at when we use the general term of a binomial expansion in this video. So oftentimes in a binomial expansion, you might not be asked to do out a full binomial expansion, but you might be asked for a specific term within that. Okay, so I've put a question here. Find the third term of the expansion of 5x plus 1 to the power of 10. Okay, so we can do that by doing out the full binomial expansion of this and reading, well, what is that third term? Okay, so that is one way we can do it. And we're going to start by doing it this way, just up until the third term. And then once we've done that, we'll kind of compare it to using this general term and how much quicker that might be. So as a recap, these were our steps for our binomial expansion. Okay, we started by saying, okay, what indice is the expansion raised to? Then we'd open up these big brackets. So for example, in this one, because it was a power of 10, I'm going to open up these big brackets where I can put 10 on the top of the bracket, and then I'll have choose 0, choose 1, choose 2 on the bottom. Then after each of those brackets, I'm going to have space to put in 2 more sets of brackets. And in those brackets, in the first bracket, I'm going to use the first term from the expression that was within the bracket. And in the second bracket, I'm going to look at the second term that was within the bracket. Then I'm going to add powers in. So after the first terms bracket, I'm adding the original indice number and then reducing by 1 all the way to 0. And after the second terms bracket, I'll start at 0 and work my way up to whatever the original number was, so 10 in this case. Okay, then we just go through it and simplify it where possible. So this is my question that I started with. Okay, if I wanted to go through this in terms of just a general binomial expansion, I could use those steps that we had written out. Okay, so just as a reminder, and if you don't remember how to do your binomial expansions, then go back and look at that. Okay, I'm not going to spend loads of time doing this, but just to quickly go through how we're doing this. So I change the size of that pen. So it's 5x plus 1 to the power of 10. That's what I'm expanding. Okay, so I'm going to do 11 of these big brackets. Okay, and then 2 small brackets underneath or beside, plus. Okay, so I would have to do 11 of these if I wanted to do out the full binomial expansion. Okay, because there's a power of 10, that means that I'm doing 1 more than that, so I would do out 11. Okay, now you might notice at this stage that we only actually have to go as far as the third term. Okay, so I actually will probably just do the first 3 and then get to the first term here. But really, if I wanted to do the full binomial expansion, I would keep that going. Okay, so in each of these big brackets, I'm going to have 10 on the top. So 10, 10, 10. And I go through the whole thing, filling those in before I go on to my next step, which is starting at 0 and going up 1, 2, and so on. Okay, then in the next bracket, so the first small bracket, I'm filling in the first term from inside those brackets. So the 5x in this case. And in the second bracket, I'm filling in the second term from inside the bracket. So the number 1. Okay, now we're going to go through this and start adding indices. So we are starting at the number 10 after the 5, down to 9, down to 8. Okay, and then after the 1, I'm starting at 0 and I am working my way up to the number 10. Okay, so 2 and, okay. So from this here, I can see my third term. Okay, I can see what that expansion is going to be. So I don't need to continue this. I can see this here. Okay, my third term is 10, choose 2, by 5x to the power of 8 times 1 squared. I know that multiplying by a 1 squared is not going to change my answer, but still write it down in your first step, okay? So I can type this into my calculator. Okay, 10 choose 2, I'm going to get 45. Then I have a 5 to the power of 8, so that's 390,625. 6, 2, 5, and then the x is also to the power of 8. Okay, and then I'm multiplying by 1, which I know is not going to make a difference to my answer. Okay, so just multiply that out then. So it's 17578 125. Okay, and then I have my x to the power of 8 at the end. So that is my third term. That's one way I can do it. Now, if they had asked me for something like the 7th term, okay, it would have taken me a lot longer doing out this binomial expansion up until the 7th. Okay, even longer if they had asked me something like the 12th term. Okay, obviously this question doesn't have a 12th term, but if it did, if it had a power here of 11 or 12 or 13 or anything on from that. Okay, so this is one way we can do it, but it can be time consuming. Okay, so the other way that we are going to look at doing it is we're going to look at something called our general term. So if I have x plus y to the power of n, okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm taking a expansion, okay, but I'm just generalizing my first term, my second term, and some power. So if I have this, okay, well, let's come up with some way that we can write a general term. So first thing is, here they asked me for the third term. Okay, so if I had the third term here, okay, so if I was asked for the third term, what number is very, I suppose, prominent in this is the number 2. Okay, we have a 2 down here, we have 2 as the power here, and we've taken 2 from that number 10 for this one. Okay, so it's just worth noting here that my first term, okay, that interesting number is 0. Okay, my second term, the interesting number is, or the number that kind of comes up a lot, is 1. Okay, my third term, that interesting number that comes up a lot is 2. Okay, so I'm going to say that, okay, so I'm going to use this or. Okay, I'm going to use a value or here for that number that comes up a lot. Okay, so that number that comes up a lot is 1 less than the term you're at. Okay, so when I have, let's say, my third term, okay, so third term, okay, or is going to be the number 2. Okay, so or is the numberth term minus 1. Okay, so the term you're looking at, the term you're interested in, take 1 away. Okay, then when we go through this and we come up with a formula for our general term, we can use what we've done in this question. Okay, no matter what term I'm asked for here, in this big bracket I had a 10. Okay, and then depending on what term you were looking at, you took 1 away and put that in the bottom. Okay, so we're going to call that number or. Okay, and sorry, I should have actually, because we are looking at the general term, I'm going to say that that's not 10, it's n. Okay, so n, and then on the bottom of it, it's or. But just remember, or is 1 less than the term that you're interested in. Okay, then in your first bracket, what did you have? Well, you had this first term from inside those brackets, so our x. Okay, and then that power, look at the power here. It was taking 0 away from 10, taking 1 away from 10, taking 2 away from 10. Okay, so I have 10, take away whatever that or value is. And then I have my second value from inside the brackets. Okay, and what was that? It was the same as or, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so that's to the power of or. So this is how we can use our general term. Okay, so if I tried to do out my binomial expansion, or get my third term without doing out my binomial expansion, I suppose. Okay, so if I had, so the question was 5x plus 1 to the power of 10. Okay, I could say that that's, so by comparing these, n was the power outside, so 10. Then I need to put or at the bottom. Okay, they've asked me for my third term in this question, so I'm going to use that or is 2. Okay, then they use the first term. Okay, so x was the first term in this question. In my question, it was a 5x. So it's 5x. Okay, then that's to the power of n. So the 10, take away this or value. So take away the number 2. And then my second value from inside the bracket. So 1. And that's to the power of or. Okay, so or in this case again was the number 2. Okay, so I can see there that my third term really quickly is 10, choose 2, so 45. Then I had 5x to the power of 8. Okay, and then I have my 1 squared, which I don't actually need to write down in this case because I already have it on the line prior. Okay, so look at how much quicker it was for me to do this out. And now I still have to finish it, but still. And also, I've just done it out for the third term. If they also continue to say and the 6th and 7th term, I could really quickly just change that number 2. Everything else is the exact same. Okay, if they ask me for the 6th term, I'd have 5 there instead of 2. If they ask me for the 7th term, I'd have 6 there instead of 2, and so on. Okay, so when I do this out, I'm going to have the same as what I had up here. Okay, so I have literally gotten myself to kind of somewhere between these two stages in this. Okay, so it just saved me. It just saved me doing out a full binomial expansion. Okay, so I'm going to do an example of this now, not explaining the general term so much in my next video.